Home and Community Options, Project Find, the Women's Resource Center of Winona, Winona Occupational Rehabilitation Services, Winona State University social work students, and the WSU American Democracy Project. We are pleased to welcome those of you in our live audience and citizens who may be watching at home. We also want to thank the City of Winona for allowing us to hold this educational forum in the council chambers. For those of you watching at home, we have a call-in phone number where you can provide us with questions for the panel. The call-in phone number is 507-450-3859. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan volunteer organization organized at the local, state, and national level to encourage citizens to become educated and participate in government. While we as a league do study and take stands on issues, we do not endorse or support political parties, candidates, or tell the voters how to answer the referendum questions. We will read statements from candidates who are unable to attend the forum. This evening, we welcome 3 candidates. This forum is intended to provide the voters with information so they can make an educated choice on the ballot. The views expressed in this educational forum are those from the candidates. We do encourage our members as individuals, as we encourage each of you to get involved in your community. For the 2018 forums, the League of Women Voters Winona has adopted the participation policy as approved by the League of Women Voters Minnesota 2018 board. This policy for all forums allows inviting all candidates for an elected office. If only one candidate chooses to participate, the forum will be held. The League of Women Voters Winona participation policy and ground rules were provided to the candidates with their invitation to attend. Copies of the policy are available this evening for the public. I will review briefly highlights of the ground rules for this forum. The audience is expected to be courteous to the candidates and good listeners. This is a live cable TV broadcast. The audience is asked not to express support or concern during the forum and to hold their applause until the end of the forum. We remind everyone to please turn off your cell phones, pagers, and electronic devices. This forum is being taped, may not be edited, and must be broadcast in its entirety and in accord with the FCC regulations. During the forum, we ask the audience present and our TV listeners to write down their questions or call them in at 507-450-3859. Our timekeeper for this evening is Mary Borgen. The League of Women Voters and co-sponsors will facilitate the questions for the moderator. The moderator will ask the questions. The League of Women Voters will determine the questions to be asked, and attempts in good faith will be made to cover all areas of interest expressed by the audience. The candidates will not know the questions in advance. Questions that are hostile, partisan, embarrassing, inappropriate, or of a personal nature will not be asked. Questions of similar topics may be grouped. Those citizens watching at home are again reminded to call in your questions at 507-450-3859. All questions will become property of the League of Women Voters. Candidates will strictly observe the time limits on responses. The timekeeper will hold up cards to indicate the time is about to expire. Once the stop card is displayed, the candidate will stop at the end of the current sentence. Opening statements will be 2 minutes, questions will be 1 minute, and closing statements will be up to 2 minutes. The candidates with us today are running for attorney, Karin Sonneman, auditor treasurer, Sandra Sukla, and recorder Bob Bambanek was to be here, but he cannot attend tonight, and sheriff is Ron Ganrud. Also invited were Winona County Soil and Water Board candidates who are both unopposed. District 1 is Leo Speltz, and District 2 was Gerald Mueller. They were invited to attend but are not present. They did not submit statements. Voters are encouraged to contact either of the candidates via the website for the board. Their office is located in Lewiston, Minnesota. Now we will proceed with the opening statements from the candidates present. We will begin in alphabetical order based on the titles of the official, and we are starting, candidates have allowed me to address them by their first name, so we'll begin with our opening statements, and our first statement will be from Ron Ganrud, our sheriff.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me and all of us to the forum tonight. It's a pleasure to be here. Not quite so nervous as I was 4 years ago when I was here. I've been sheriff for 4 years. I worked for the sheriff's department for, 32 years now. And in my 4 years as sheriff, when I was running for sheriff, I had issues or things that I wanted to address, and we did. We now have lead deputies on the night shift. I wanted to get an ICAC investigator going. We have that, and he's got the training that he needs to be an ICAC investigator, and ICAC is Internet Crimes Against Children. So he does computer-type crimes, and we've made arrests for prostitution and that kind of thing with the internet crimes. I've also structured the shifts a little bit so that we have a little more coverage later at night. As far as the future, right now our biggest issue in Winona County for the Sheriff's Office is our jail. We had our jail inspection 2 years ago, and they put us down from a 1-year facility to a 90-day lockup, and now they've given, the state of Minnesota has given us a sunset date. They'll close our current facility in 3 years, so we have big decisions on where to go with that. So we're working with the county board. Part of the process is the jail advisory committee, and I'm on that. We've been working hard on that committee for just under a year, and we will be ready to speak to the board shortly on that. The secondary issue that we have in the sheriff's office right now is our courthouse security. I'm working on trying to beef that up a little bit from what we've had. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from our county attorney, Karen Sonneman.
Thank you. Thank you all for skipping a beautiful October evening to be here and watching us also on cable. Thank you to the league and to the other co-sponsors. I was elected to the office of county attorney in 2010 and re-elected in 2014, and I'm running for my 3rd term, and I ask for your vote. Prior to my 2010 election, I was a 3rd district public defender for over 20 years and was in private practice of law with my husband, Carl Sonneman. He and I have been married for 34 years. I can't believe that, but we have 3 grown children and 1 dog, and we're now empty nesters. So I have an undergraduate degree in economics from the University of Maryland and a agriculture and applied economics master's degree from University of Minnesota and a law degree from William Mitchell College of Law. As county attorney, I am the chief criminal prosecutor for Winona County, and my office is responsible for prosecuting all felony crimes and most other crimes occurring in Winona County. We also handle child protection, and I am, on the other side of my work, I am the chief corporate counsel for the county of Winona, handling legal services for all of the departments, including my fellow elected colleagues sitting here at the table. I give you my background and a summary of the work of our office because it explains my perspective and approach based on my broad and deep diversity of education and professional experience that has helped immensely in dealing with the complex and interrelated issues presented in our community. The elected office of county attorney is a nonpartisan position which serves the criminal justice system and civil duties of my office well. Since being elected almost 8 years ago, I have accomplished much of what I set out to do, but there's much more work to do. I can talk about some of that when we get to some of the questions. So thank you.
Thank you. And next, we'll hear from Sandra Sukla, our county auditor treasurer.
Well, good evening, everyone. I am Sandra Sukla, the current county auditor treasurer, and I'm running for re-election, and I would like to take this time to thank the League of Women Voters and all the other sponsoring organizations for the invitation as well as the opportunity to participate in these very crucial and critical events that help mold our democracy. I actually tried recycling my opening statement from 4 years ago, but so much has changed in my life, I just found it wouldn't be pertinent and obviously not in my background. but in what I've done and what I have accomplished. The position of auditor treasurer is such a huge learning curve. It was, and it continues to be a huge learning curve. I had to learn how to calculate taxes. I had to learn how to distribute those taxes to the entities that asked me to collect them for them. I had to learn how to run an election, and on and on. We have almost 28,000 registered voters, 27,000 tax parcels, and just shy of 50,000 residents in this beautiful county. And somewhere in one of the areas that I supervise, my staff or I affect those people's lives. And everyone I work with at the county loves what they do. We love working for Winona County, and we're so appreciative to be a part of Winona County. And once again, thank you for attending.
Thank you. Thank you, candidates, for your opening statements. We are now ready for our first audience question. And our first question will start with Karen. What do you feel are the top 3 issues in this election for this office, and why?
Well, the county attorney's office, as I said, covers just a myriad of issues. I mean, there's never the same thing every day, which makes it a really great job. I guess I would say that we're facing the opioid crisis and continuing to see a lot of drugs in our state and our nation, and also in Winona County. So I think that's one of the top issues, because then that leads to a lot of out-of-home placement of children and higher costs to the county. But we've been doing a lot of preventative and early intervention programs, working together with Ron's office on also drug investigation. So I think, I know there's top 3. You can name anything. Well, the jail is another one, but I'll leave that to Ron. So I'm stopping now.
Next will be Sandra. Top 3, what are your top 3 issues in this election for this office, and why?
Okay, it's kind of hard to do 2 minutes and 3 things, and I think I'll just focus on one. One of the things that came up very recently is obviously the sale of the government building. And we actually had the first of what's probably going to be many meetings about the moving of the personnel and the services from the government center over to the county office building. And I think, well, I know our primary focus is to still do and perform good customer service, because it's a big change for the public anytime you make such a huge change. We're going from a very open and public building to a pretty much very private building. And we want to be respectful of the folks, the employees, as well as the clientele that is used to going to the COB. We don't want to disrupt that, but yet we do want to be open for the public that needs to come pay their taxes, get their documents recorded.
Thank you. Ron Gandrud, Sheriff.
As I said, my opening, the biggest issue for us at the Sheriff's Office is the jail. We've been looking at this issue for years. We've had a number of studies done. We've worked with the federal government trying to figure out what's the best thing for Winona County and our jail situation. And the advisory committee is working on this. And like I said, we'll have a report around the first of the year and give them advice on the situation we have. But, we'll be closed in 3 years, and we need to decide, build a jail, let our jail close and ship all our inmates out to other counties and pay the per diems there, or build a facility. If we build a facility, we have the space in the parking lot. It'd be a matter of how big a jail would we need to build.
Thank you. Our next question, and this is maybe more for attorney or sheriff, but Sandra, if you have, I'll start with you, okay? It's, what programs do you think are most cost-effective in helping keep people out of jail and get them back to being productive members of society?
Well, like, as you said, I can't really speak to that subject very well, but like I said, I do totally support the programs the county currently has in place, and I know restorative justice. I obviously can't share names with you, but I did have a taxpayer come to the counter. He was actually very close to losing his property, and he told me how he turned his life around by going through what had been known as drug court. And he was actually able to, he said he managed to kick some bad habits he had and got his life back on track. And I was very, very touched by that. So good work, you too, and everyone else you work with over there.
Thank you. Next would be Sheriff Ron Ganrud. Do you want the question again?
Please.
What programs do you think are most cost-effective in helping keep people out of jail and get them back to being productive members of society?
Well, I would piggyback on what Sandra just said. Drug court is a great program, and we had a treatment court, sorry.
Yeah, we all say drug court.
Yeah. Treatment court, we had a graduation today, and I try to make those graduations. I don't go to the court hearings or the court sessions, but I do try to make the graduations, and it's always good to hear the story of how someone has gotten through the program and how they were able to graduate. The story we heard today was fantastic. It's very heartwarming, and it's good to see that I believe he said he had 800 and some days of sobriety now. And I know we dealt with him a lot when I was working the road and when I was chief deputy. And he told me after the thing that I will not see his name on the booking roster anymore. And I said, well, I hope I see your name in the paper for good things rather than reading your name.
Thank you. Karen Sonneman, attorney.
Well, I would echo the treatment court, which it is now, the state of Minnesota has now told us they want us to call it treatment court, which it is. I mean, it is a problem-solving court. I think that was one of our most successful initiatives, which we started in 2012. And today's graduate was the 27th graduate of that program. Restorative justice, as Sandra mentioned, is another program that is for juveniles in our county. Drug court deals with adult offenders who have felony convictions. Restorative justice works with kids. And I think it's really important to have both focuses, because the earlier you get to children and help them, the less likely they'll be in our jail, in our criminal justice system. So we have both of those two programs, and the state of Minnesota has done studies which were referenced in Results First. So I just ask you to look at that, just Google that. It's a Minnesota Department of Health statistic that shows the effectiveness of those programs.
Okay, thank you. Our next question will be starting with Ron Ganrud, Sheriff. Share your role in assisting the county administration and board to set the Winona County budget annually.
My role, first I go through last year's budget and see if I need to either add money or take money away from various things. This past year, well, last year we went and started leasing our jail vehicles. This year we're going to start leasing our squad cars. So I'm working with the county administration and the board to spend money properly, frugally, to the best of our ability. But I put the budget together, and then I meet with the administrator and the finance director, and we go over line item by line item, seeing if we're in the ballpark anyway, and we discuss it, and it's ultimately presented to the board.
Great, thank you. Next, Karen Sonneman, attorney.
Well, like Ron, every department head, and we're all department heads, has to go over and present a budget to the board. We work with administration and finance in the county to do that, and that process starts pretty early in the year for the next budget. In my office, I work hard, just as my colleagues do here at this table, to look for savings where we can, and also we benefit in my office, as well as many of the other criminal justice programs, from grants that we can get to help reduce the pressure on the property levy. And that includes our original drug court grant, which we now have a state allotment, and we're on the allotment list. So thank you to the state of Minnesota, that's funded, and we can maintain that and sustain that program, as well as many of our restorative justice program that's funded by the county. I also administer the CJCC budget. I'll tell you about that later after another question.
Thank you. Sandra Suklo?
Karen and Ron both, they covered, pretty much the basic steps. Yes, we base our budgets on previous years. What's, I guess, a little unusual about the auditor-treasurer budget is we have an election every other year. So we obviously have to beef up our budget a little bit more on those even years. And I'll just, give a big thanks and a plug as well to some of the grant dollars that this county was awarded by the Secretary of State's office to do some election equipment upgrade, where the county actually purchased 50 poll pads, which we have sent out to the city of Winona precincts, as well as Goodview and Lewiston, and hopefully the next election round we'll have them up in St. Charles. It actually modernized the election a bit, and it took a lot of the workload off of my office. So it was good to have the support of the board to let us apply for that grant.
Well, you went into our next question, all right? But we're starting with Karen, but in the 2018 primary in August, Winona County used the iPads for voter registration. How did they work, and did you make any adjustments since the primary? So it's,
I think I'm going to defer that to Sandra.
okay.
So that's her.
And
That's
how
fine.
long
Wheelhouse.
do I get to talk?
Yeah,
Because
she can have our
I
time
get
right
pretty
now.
excited about our election equipment. The poll pads they're just genius. The gentleman that created the software, he was an election administrator down in the Kansas City, Missouri area. And I tested those machines very hard. Like I said, I always try to break things. I feel that's the best way to make sure they're gonna work. I could not find a way to break them. Like I said, I think they were very well embraced by our election judges, by our voters, and by the office staff too, because once the election was done, we did not have to sit there and scan rosters. They're just phenomenal. And like I said, we are going to utilize them again for the general, as well as roll them out to St. Charles in 2020.
Thank you. Ron, would you like to comment on that?
No.
All right. Our next question, we'll start with you, Sandra. The county board publicly states they cross-train employees to be efficient. Share types of cross-training in your department.
Well, I think the best example of cross-training, I think, is in our license center. We have 5 full-time staff members as well as a floater. They can all process titles, birth certificates, marriage certificates, any sort of motor vehicle related items, as well as the real ID, the enhanced ID that just started in our office back on October 1st. And they share their knowledge with each other. They are constantly learning from each other and teaching each other. In the auditor-treasurer's area, well, we only have 3 staff members, so cross-training, it has to occur, because at any point in time, one of us might be out of the office. That doesn't mean the office gets closed. We just have to pick up and get the work done.
Thank you. Ron?
Cross-training, we're quite limited with that. I mean, Deputies are licensed, so you have to be licensed to patrol the road and make arrests. Jail staff, full-time, does one job, but we do have transport officers. They're not really cross-trained. So the only place we really do cross-train is in our records department. We have somebody that kind of handles our civil division, and a deputy is kind of cross-trained, so if one is sick or out, the other can cover for him. The other ladies know a little bit about it, but not quite as much. And each of the ladies in the records department has a specific job, but the others are backup to them.
Thank you. Karen?
Like Ron's department, my department's very specialized. We have 8 attorneys, and they have to be licensed by the state of Minnesota. That includes myself. We also have 7 support staff, which includes a crime victims coordinator. So all of the work is very specialized. Our 6 support staff, besides our crime victims coordinator, are legal assistants, and they've become very well versed in the work we do. So it's very difficult to have somebody come in. Even our receptionist is also a legal assistant. So we don't use cross-training in our department.
Okay. An audience question following up with something you've already talked about. Winona County needs a new jail. Why do we not have one? What would you suggest to be done to serve these individuals? And also a follow-up with regarding the upcoming jail summit on October 25th.
We've had a number of studies over the years since I've been with the sheriff's office, and each time the study has shown that we need a new jail. But each time it's been a close vote, but it's been a vote not to proceed with building a new jail. When we were downgraded to a 90-day facility 2 years ago, that kind of started the ball rolling, that I think everyone could see the writing on the wall that something needed to be done. Now we've done some more studies, we've done a lot more talking about it. We started the jail advisory committee, and again, that'll be going before the board here shortly, the report that we're putting together. Yeah, we need to do something, and again, we're looking at all options. I guess my option, the best option, I believe, is for us to build a new jail in the parking lot and acquire the property adjoining us for replacing our parking lot.
Thank you. Karen?
I guess I can add that our Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, or CJC as we call it for short, was born out of the last jail study, I think that was done back in 2006, 2005. And the recommendation at that time from the National Institute of Corrections that was doing that, or helping us with that study, was that if you're not going to build a new jail, then form a Criminal Justice Coordinating Council to develop programs that would reduce the pressure for more jail beds. We did that. CJCC started in 2007, and I think it's been very successful to all of the early intervention prevention programs, like we've talked about already, I still say drug court, treatment court, and the other programs, has been very effective, I think, in reducing the pressures on the existing jail. But I spent, well, done, so
Okay.
there you go.
We'll stop there.
Yeah.
And I'll defer on this
You'll
question.
defer on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Our next question, and this one will be starting with Karen. Budgets are always tight. If your office were to have a modest budget increase, what would you use that extra money to do?
Well, I think that in the 8 years that I've been county attorney, I've been able to operate our office with the same number of staff. And so I'm really wouldn't, I mean, other than the increases which the board has to deal with, which is the, cost of living adjustments and folks who get promoted and things like that, and that is the bulk of the budget. So I never want to turn down money, but I think that we're running a lean machine. And we do have the benefit of grant money. We also can use forfeiture money for educational programs, which we've done. Most recent, we put on a program over at the technical college, sponsored that with forfeiture money to help employers learn about hiring ex-offenders. So we've used our money well.
Thank you. Sandra?
Well, it depends on how modest and how ongoing it is. If it were generously modest, I would certainly look to hire an additional staff member in the License Center just to alleviate some of the wait time for our customers, as well as to kind of backfill some of the work that could probably get done a little faster in the auditor-treasurer area. If it were minimally modest, I think what I would probably pursue is some more training opportunities for my auditor-treasurer staff. I took advantage of a lot of training through the Department of Revenue and the Secretary of State's office, and I'd actually like to open that up to staff so that they're not just hearing it from me, that they're actually hearing it from the experts.
Thank you. And Ron?
This comes down to the courthouse security. We currently have a security company provide courthouse security, but they're not just in that building. They're also responsible for security across the street at the county office building and at the government center. We have 3 courtrooms, and oftentimes we have at least 2 judges, sometimes 3. And they might not all be going at the same time, but on the same day. So we have 2 people providing security that are armed, but that means that a lot of times we don't have anybody at the front door watching the magnetometer, screening people that are coming and going from the building. And if we do, that means somebody's not up in the courtroom. So if I had a little bit more money, I would be increasing security at the courthouse.
Thank you. At this point, I would like to remind TV viewers that you can call in. Our phone number is 507-450-3859. We welcome you to call in with any questions you might have. Our next question will start with you, Sandra Sukla, and this one is probably a good one for you. Are there any plans to automate property tax billing, like electronic bill payments or email statements?
Absolutely. Actually, one of the things I was very pleasantly surprised to find out is our current printer vendor is going to offer email notifications. In the state of Minnesota, we still have to physically send you a tax bill, but we can now email you and let you know that the tax bill is on its way. We have always actually offered online tax payments. We actually moved to a new vendor that offered us some cost savings. We did that in August, and so people are able to pay their taxes online either using a credit card or an e-check, and the fees are lower through this new vendor as well. So it is, yes, technology that we do plan to take advantage of in the very near future.
Thank you. Ron, would you like to comment on that or any automated billing or anything?
No, I'm
No.
good with it.
You're good.
I'm good.
And Karen?
I'm going to leave it to the expert here.
Okay. Our next question, and we'll be starting with Ron. Do you need any new specialized staff, and share the expertise you could use to enhance customer service?
New staff or?
New specialized staff, and share the expertise you could use to enhance customer service with a new staff member.
With a new staff member, I guess off the top of my head, I can't think of anything there. I think we're pretty well covered. I really like the fact that we have somebody answering the phone at the law enforcement center. I do not like it when I call other agencies and you get press 1 for this and press 2 for that. So if somebody's referring to that, I wouldn't change it at the law enforcement center. Guess I can't think of anything else that would cover that, though.
Thank you. Karen?
Excuse me. I don't think that our office needs any new specialized staff. What I have done in my role as county attorney is really encourage my staff, all of my staff, but particularly my attorneys, to attend trainings and develop specialties. Ron mentioned ICAC, the Internet Crimes Against Children, which we joined with Ron and his office and sent one of my prosecutors to a training so that now our office is able on a regional basis to assist other counties in their investigations of internet crimes against children. I also have a team of two of my attorneys who really specialize in prosecuting criminal sexual conduct cases. And I sent one of them to a week-long training a year ago, and the other one's going next year. Also, we benefit greatly in the county attorney's offices from collaborating and working with our colleagues in other county attorney's office. I can call Mike Freeman up at the Hennepin County Attorney's Office and ask him, can we borrow somebody on this? And it's just a wonderful sharing of resources. So.
Thank you. Who's next?
I'll ask if you could repeat the question, please.
Okay, Sandra. Do you need any new specialized staff, and share the expertise you could use to enhance customer service?
Well, I wouldn't say so much specialized, but I did refer to hopefully adding a staff member to our license center, because now with the additional time needed to process real and enhanced IDs, it's really prohibiting people that just are in there to do tabs to get in and out of our office quickly. So I have actually discussed this with the administrator already about adding a 6th workstation that would just be a quick turnaround station for tab renewals. Hopefully that will be a reality very soon. And as far as specialty, in my office, because everybody does need to cover for each other's jobs, we really don't tend to specialize in anything. We're kind of jacks of all trade in the auditor-treasurer's area.
Thank you. Let's see, this one we are starting with Karen, our county attorney. Share how many employees are in your department, how many supervisors in that number, and add any comments just so people understand your department.
Well, I already mentioned that we have 8 attorneys in my office, including myself, and 7 support staff, including a crime victims coordinator and a office coordinator. So that's a total of 15. I'm the only supervisor in our office, so I handle, well, as Sandra said very well, jack of all trades. We pretty much cover everything. So that's our office.
Thank you. Sandra?
In the auditor-treasurer area, there is myself as well as 2 deputy auditor-treasurers. In the license center, we have 5 full-time employees that report to me. I do have a lead person, but she is not in a supervisory role. And then we also utilize a floater position that is shared between my office as well as the assessor and the recorder. But truthfully, most of the time you'll find that floater working in the license center.
Thank you. Ron?
Obviously the sheriff, and then under me is the chief deputy. We also have a jail administrator. We have a dispatch supervisor, and emergency management is also under the sheriff. For deputies, we have 20 licensed officers that are patrolling and doing investigations. We have 2 of the investigators assigned to narcotics, and they're quite busy doing we switched it a few years ago. We're part of the task force for southeastern Minnesota, but it's really a serious crimes unit now rather than just drug investigations. We have a general investigator, and then we have a lead investigator that kind of oversees all of their work. On the night shift now, we have 2 lead deputies to oversee the work of the deputies. So 20 deputies. The jail has 24 full-time staff, plus about 10 or 12 part-time, we call them transport officers. In the summertime, we have 4 water patrol, and then we have a number of volunteers also. We have the SOAR team, there's about 20. We have the dive team, there's about 20, and then the mounted posse, I think, is now up to 7.
Thank you. Our next question, and this is basically towards Sandra, but I hope the others might be able to comment on it. Currently, there is much news about voter suppression efforts in various parts of the country. Have you seen voter suppression efforts in our area?
Absolutely not in Minnesota. I have lived in Wisconsin for part of my life, but I've also been a Minnesota resident for many years, and I guess just comparing Minnesota to other states, I think we are probably one of the most progressive states as far as encouraging people to register to vote, to go and vote. We allow people to vote absentee 46 days prior to the election. Voter registration just cut off on Tuesday, the 16th, for pre-registration in order to get on the roster. However, you're actually able to register to vote right up until the day of the vote. You can go to your polling site and you can register. I mean, obviously, we have security in place as far as you having to provide proof of who you are. But no, I would say there's absolutely no voter suppression in this state.
Thank you. Ron Ganrud, our sheriff?
I want to go back to the last question.
Okay.
I don't want to shortchange any of my staff. We also have 13 dispatchers, and we have 4 records people. And as far as voter suppression, again, I'll defer to Sandra.
Okay, thank you. Karen Sonneman, our county attorney?
I'll jump in on the voter suppression issue and echo Sandra's comments about Minnesota being one of the best states in terms of running elections and dealing with any issues that may come up about voter suppression or voter fraud. We have extremely low. I mean, in my 8 years, and I do work with Sandra on issues regarding elections. That's one of my duties as the county attorney, and when I have my civil hat on and take my criminal one off, but then we can put a criminal one on if there's some voter issues. But I would also say and echo that we are very blessed and lucky to be living in the state of Minnesota, where we have an excellent election system.
Thank you. All right, this question starts with Ron Ganrud for sheriff, and this one's a kind of fun one. If you had a magic wand, what would you like to accomplish with it in the next year?
If I had a magic wand, I would like to see the bridge project done, the old Walls building taken down, and work started on a parking lot for us, and start working on a jail. And if I could have all the money that there is available to build the jail, we would build a jail that would have a mental health unit to it, and we would have an adjoining building that would have a juvenile unit to it, because that's our two of our huge issues. A lot of inmates across the country suffer from serious mental health issues, and we need to deal with those issues rather than just locking people up. And we are transporting juveniles all over the state and even out of state to find adequate places to put them. Yeah, if we had the money and we could, I would build a big facility and keep people locally and try to get them through their issues and their problems.
Thank you. Karen Sonneman, our county attorney?
Well, I would agree with everything that Ron said. My magic wand would also include the jail, and I have referred to it when I talk about it as a justice center, which is having program space for people with mental illness and substance abuse, and putting our treatment court in there. But I would also focus that wand on helping people with mental illness, both in the adult and particularly the juvenile sector. We do not have enough treatment, inpatient treatment facilities. We have some very good local treatment programs here in Winona, so we're lucky there, but we don't have enough placement facilities for juveniles, particularly, and adults, and so we really need to focus, and I would use that magic wand to create all the centers that we've always talked about needing, so.
Thank you. And Sandra Sukla, what would you do with a magic wand?
I would make sure that everybody got their tax statement and they didn't lose it. And they came in on time to pay them. And that's, I mean, truthfully, it sounds maybe simplistic and terrible, but taxes kind of rule my world. So I just wish everybody realized how important it is to pay your taxes on time, because it's not only the county, it's the schools, it's the townships, it's the special districts, really depending on that money, and it's hard for them to manage their budgets without getting that money that they need to run their programs.
Thank you. All right, our next question is with Karen. We'll start with you as county attorney. In other counties, your position is appointed versus elected. Do you feel your position should continue as elected or be appointed?
Well, I guess I would say that most counties, if not all of them now, are elected county attorneys. It's rare that a county attorney is appointed. There's a few very small counties in Minnesota, I mean by population size, that may have a private attorney who's been appointed by the board to serve as a county attorney. So I don't know if there's a problem with that question that way, but I think, I know there's been pressure on other elected offices to go to an appointed system. The recorder, the auditor, treasurer, other counties do have those. But I think it's important that citizens have an opportunity to vote and elect those very important positions, the sheriff, county attorney, auditor, treasurer, and recorder. Yeah, the county attorneys are all elected pretty much, so.
Thank you. Sandra Sukla as our treasurer auditor.
I'm probably changing my tune a little bit since the first time I ran, but I think truthfully, because of the complexity of the job, I'm not so sure that I'm totally on board with it being appointed, but if it were to remain elected, I do wish that there were some qualifications people needed to meet, much like what the sheriff and the attorney's office has. When I did run 4 years ago, I did point out my educational background, having both a vocational and a bachelor's degree in accounting. And I think if I didn't have that, it would be a much more difficult job. You're dealing with a lot of money. In this county alone, it's a $50 million tax collection, and you do want somebody that knows what they're doing managing that. So I can see both sides. A lot of what I do in my job, you can't learn at school, but the tax collection definitely you need some accounting background.
Thank you. Ron Gandry?
The sheriff goes way back to the England times. Sheriff, in England, it was the shire, the county. And I think it is important to continue having the sheriff elected by the members of the county. In English times, you know, the person that was a sheriff was somebody that would settle issues between neighbors. And that's still what we do. We're out in the county, we're out there driving around, trying to keep everyone safe and dealing with issues and everything else. And I think it's important to have a vote, have a say. And every 4 years you do have a say. If I'm not doing my job, then somebody else should come in and take over for me.
All right. Our last question is what personal, and this one we are starting with Sandra. What personal assets do you possess that help you negotiate and communicate on specific issues of contention or disagreement?
I guess I'm a big believer in listening before I talk. I truthfully feel I can empathize with most people. I've had a lot of life experience, both good and bad, where I like to do what's fair. And usually what I find is fair and right kind of go hand in hand. So my first year as auditor, I think I made a lot of maybe rash decisions just to kind of codify people, and now I've decided that doing what's right is probably the best way to do it. So I just, like I said, I listen, but yet it's still in my best interest to do what I know is right.
Thank you. Ron Ganru?
Would you repeat the question for me?
Yes. What personal assets do you possess that help you to negotiate and communicate on specific issues of contention or disagreement?
Well, I think my demeanor has gotten me through a lot of things. In all my years in law enforcement, and I'm coming up on 40, I've hardly ever gotten physical with anybody. Just talking things out, and I have an open door. I think if anybody comes to the sheriff's office and I'm in the office, they'll find that they can come in and talk to me about whatever, whether it's an issue with a dispatcher, a deputy, or anything else. So I think I'm very open, and I'm a good listener, and I think I have the ability to work with people and work through their problems. I'm good at mediation and trying to work together.
Thank you. Karen Sonneman, our county attorney.
Well, I think I have patience. This job takes patience, but it also takes strength and sense of purpose, which I think I have. I bring integrity to my work as well as my personal life. I agree with Ron and Sandra. I'm also a good listener. I've always listened before I talk, and people think I'm quiet because of that. But it's really about listening to others and respecting others' opinions, and making decisions collectively, and that's what I've done a lot of with, for instance, our CJCC, and it's all about collaboration. But ultimately, a lot of the times in my work as county attorney, I have to make pretty difficult decisions, and I try to be as informed as possible to make those decisions, but I'm willing to make the hard decisions as well. So I think that's what I bring.
Thank you. We're now nearing the end of our forum, and we would like to ask each candidate to present a 1-minute closing remark. And we'll begin with our candidate for sheriff, Ron Ganru.
In closing, I think things have gone well at the sheriff's office in the last 4 years. I really enjoy my job. I put a lot of responsibility and trust in my staff, especially my chief deputy. And I truly believe that the staff is doing a really good job with a lot of hard situations. We're currently housing 15 prisoners every day down in Houston County, and some up in Goodhue County, and once in a while up in Wabasha County. It's a lot of transportation back and forth, puts us to a lot of liability issues and safety concerns for me. And I think that's the one issue that people need to understand. If for some reason we do not build a jail and we decide to house out, it's a huge liability to us. We've already had 4 accidents with our transport vehicles. Nobody's been hurt seriously.
Thank you. We'll stop there.
All right.
Next is Karen Sonneman, who's running for county attorney. Your closing remark?
Thank you. Since I was first elected in 2010, I feel I've accomplished much of what I set out to do, as well as help the county address and navigate challenging issues that have emerged in our community, both on the criminal and civil side of my work as county attorney. I set out to collaborate with departments, agencies, local nonprofits, the community basically, state and federal partners, to build on existing programs and establish new ones. And I think I've accomplished that, but there's more work to be done. We've already talked about some of those programs that we've started, but it's a complex world, and complex solutions are really needed. It's not a simple black and white issue, but we continue to work at it, and I'll continue to work with my partners, those of whom are sitting here at this table, and many others. I also want to say, besides the collaborative work.
Thank you. Thank you
I'm
for your
done,
time.
so-
You're done. And finally, Sandra Sukla, who's running for our county's treasurer auditor position.
Okay. Well, once again, thank you to the league for inviting me, as well as all the other sponsoring organizations and the members of the audience. And I just want to take the opportunity to remind everybody that Election Day is Tuesday, November 6th. The majority of the polls in Winona County, and we do have 49 precincts, 38 polling sites. The majority of them open at 7 a.m., close at 8 p.m. But I also want to give a little plug about direct balloting, which, thanks to the kind taxpayers in Winona County, our office was able to purchase a new election machine. It's called a DS200, so we can actually accumulate the totals for all 49 precincts. And direct balloting starts on Tuesday, October 30th. And instead of doing all this paperwork to vote by absentee ballot, you do one, and then you get to put your ballot right in the machine. So it's wonderful, it's very efficient for my office as well as the voters, and that, along with the poll pads, has really gotten me excited about elections. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do want to put in one plug that we mentioned briefly, because this is a public forum on an issue we talked about today. Will one of you want to mention the CJCC October 25th public forum on the jail?
Yes, on October 25th at 6 o'clock from till 8 p.m. at the Winona Middle School Commons area. Next Thursday night, so a week from today, we will be having a forum to discuss the jail issue. It's an outreach program of our CJCC, but also our jail advisory committee, and both Ron and I are on that committee. We will have a video of the jail, so you're kind of walking into the jail and seeing that. I have a PowerPoint of many of the pictures of our jail in comparison. And then we'll have a panel on which Ron and many of his staff are on, but also some people who come into the jail to provide services, a ex-offender who spent time in the jail and is one of our graduates of drug court, and also a public member of our jail advisory committee. So it should be a great evening. There'll be light refreshments, and it's free to the public. And you just have to come over to the middle school. It's also at the same time as the school referendum education program, which I'm assuming is in the auditorium. So there may be a lot of people there, but
Thank you.
thank you.
We're at the end of our time for this forum. We want to thank all of the candidates for this informative event. The League of Women Voters would also like to thank our co-sponsors, AAUW Winona Branch, Home and Community Options, Project Fine, Women's Resource Center of Winona, Winona Occupational Rehabilitation Services, Winona State University social work students, and Winona State American Democracy Project. We'd also like to thank HBC for taping this educational forum. This forum in its entirety will be made available prior to the election on November 6th on the League of Women Voters Winona Facebook page within a few days. This is the last League of Women Voters Winona Voters Services Forum for 2018. We'd like to share how you can view the other 6 general election forums. Those forums to view are the Winona County Commissioners, 1st, 2nd, and 5th districts, City of Winona at large, wards 2 and 4, Minnesota Legislative House Districts 21B and 28A, Winona Area Public Schools referendum, and Winona Area Public School Board candidates for at-large and District 1 and 2. And also this evening, the Winona County officials for attorney, auditor, treasurer, and sheriff. All forums previous to this evening are on YouTube and are posted on the League of Women Voters Facebook page. League of Women Voters, and we would like to thank all of our general election candidates for their participation in all of these forums. As far as voter registration, if you need information on becoming a registered voter, call the Winona County Auditor Treasurer's Office or the Winona City Clerk. Online registration to direct to the Minnesota Secretary of State's office closed on October 16th, 2018 for the general election. However, Minnesota has registration at the polls. Check the Minnesota Secretary of State's website on the process, as several items of identification must be provided on election day at the polls to election judges. The League of Women, Minnesota League of Women Voters.org is a website you may also use for general voter service information. Please vote. The general election is Tuesday, November 6th. Polls are open at 7 a.m. through 8 p.m. Thank you, and have a great evening.